have everyone here. I'm Erin Huntley. This is my congressman, Congressman Dan Webster. Running for governor of this great state of Florida, and Congressman from South Florida, Congressman Byron Donalds. We have another elected official here in the back, Mike Caruso, Mark Caruso, sorry about that. Commissioner from Winter Springs, just north of here. Thank you for being here. Ortiz right here, who's going to be leading us in prayer in just a moment. And also State Committee man from Osceola County, our neighboring county here, Mark Cross. So as we always start in the state of Florida, starting with God, we will open in prayer. Pastor Ramon Ortiz, will you start us, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to start this with just a little thing for the governor, our next governor. So I am a teacher. My profession is a teacher. I am a science teacher, and I will give class like this. My student says, "Mister, why are you like that? Because it's not your outfit, it's not your uniform." And I said, because I have an important meeting today, and I will pray in the meeting for the next governor of Florida. And they told me, they just start clapping, and one of the students touched my heart because he said, "Mister, you will do history today." And I tell you, you're doing history as well today. Okay? So let's pray. Can you please stand, please? Bow your heads, and we pray. Heavenly Father, today we stand in this place with boldness, and purpose, recognizing that all authority comes from you. You are the one who raised leaders and established nations. Lord, we lift up Byron Donalds before you. We ask that you anoint him with strength, courage, and unwavering conviction. Let him not be moved by pressure, fear, or opposition, but be firmly grounded in truth, justice, and righteousness. Father, release divine wisdom over his mind, clarity over his decisions, and favor over every step he takes. Surround him with the right voices, remove every distraction, and align his path with your perfect will. We also ask, Father, that you bless President Donald Trump, strengthen him, guide him, and cover him with your protection and your wisdom. Lord, we lift up the troops of the United States Armed Forces. Protect them, give them courage, and bring peace and strength to them and their families. Let your hand be upon them, wherever they are. We declare that the state of Florida will be a land of righteousness, order, and prosperity. We speak unity over this land, strength over his people, and future filled with hope and purpose. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. And amen. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Pastor. And now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll remain standing, with Mark Cross.
Everyone can face the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And we'll have some remarks from my Congressman Daniel Webster. And we're so excited to be here for this policy announcement. And if you look at this nice sign we have here, this is a sign after my own heart. Most transparent government in America, accountability. Let's do this. We can get
Byron Donalds is not open to Orlando. He will never make America great. Byron Donalds is not open to Orlando. He will never make America great. Byron Donalds is not open to Orlando.
Bye-bye.
I know.
We outnumbered him like 15-1 at least.
I know. Moving on, back to our message about accountability in government, which is so important. And one of the leaders who has always made sure that we have great accountability in the state of Florida government, as well as our government in DC, Congressman Daniel Webster.
See y'all here today. I'm glad you came out. This is an awesome day. Starting off in Orlando, Florida, downtown Florida. So it's great to be here. I'm an early supporter of Byron. Great man. He's going to make a great governor. He's going to be good for not only Orlando, but the entire state. We're looking forward to what he's going to say today, but really, to tell you the truth, he, every time he talks, he gives out some great wisdom, understanding, knowledge. He's a fantastic person, and he will make a fantastic governor. So thank y'all for coming to hear him. You're going to enjoy it. I think you're going to actually learn a lot of it like I did. So good to see you. Good to have you all here. I'm thankful for my friends who are here today. Good to see all of you. And Byron, come talk to us.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
First of all, I really am grateful for everybody being here today. Congressman Webster, thank you so much, not only for being here and your support in this race, but for your career of service and leadership in the state of Florida. What most people don't know about Dan Webster is that he is the first Republican Speaker of the Florida House since Reconstruction in Florida. And we celebrate and we rejoice in the fact that we live in the best state in all of America here in Florida. And I just want to let people know that work started 30 years ago with Dan Webster and his colleagues who were in Tallahassee fighting the good fight, making sure that we had common sense policies which have now become the bedrock of Florida, that we could actually shift this state from blue to purple and keep Tallahassee red. And we've had one of the greatest runs in governance and leadership in all of America, and that's what has made Florida the envy of the other 49 states. So Dan, thank you so much for all your service, and thank you for not just here in Florida, but also in Washington, representing the 11th Congressional District. And we know that we're going to wish you well. We're going to miss you in Washington. So thank you. A couple of things. I wanted to first start talking about just where we are today in our state. We are the envy of the other 49. We are. I travel to a lot of different places. Working on Capitol Hill, our colleagues are typically envious of how come Florida got that? How come we've done this? We have had a great leadership with Governor Ron DeSantis. He's done a tremendous job leading Florida. And now the mission is to make sure that we preserve the Florida that we all love, preserve that great Florida dream, which has really become the envy of the other states, and prepare Florida for another generation of growth. There's a lot of different things that we're going to have to continue to do in order to keep Florida as the best state in America. Affordability is on everybody's mind. Everybody's mind. What we want to do is make sure that we are running an efficient government where we're squeezing costs out of governmental operations to make your life affordable. Let me give you a few examples. Housing. Everybody wants to talk about affordable housing, attainable housing. Well, 30% of the costs of new homes are government costs. Government, not sheetrock, not plywood, not copper pipes, not furniture, not appliances, government. We have to be efficient with the time of people who want to build homes in our state for young people trying to get into the home ownership game. We do that by modernizing internal operations in the state of Florida. This is the way we get to the point where when you're buying that house or you're going into that new development is more affordable for the people of Florida who want to make it their home. If you want to start with affordability, you got to make our government more efficient. 2, insurance. The governor and the legislature did great work around tort reform. We're going to keep that in place in the state of Florida. But we also have to re-examine our regulatory system in insurance and find other ways to push insurance costs down. When I was in the State House, I chaired the Insurance and Banking Subcommittee. I spent 17 years of my career in banking, insurance, and financial services. So these are issues that I'm very well versed in. We want to look at every aspect of Florida's insurance market and look for new ways to adjust our regulatory system to probably save anywhere from 5 to 15% and push those costs down for the people of Florida. Property taxes, we all know the governor's goal is to repeal homestead property taxes, and he has my full support in that endeavor. We'll see what Tallahassee comes up with and what they can get accomplished. If they're not able to get anything done, what we want to be able to do is target those relief, target that property tax relief to seniors on fixed income. Because if you're a senior on fixed income, you're living paycheck to paycheck. The thing that's causing you the most harm today is when taxes and insurance are now more than principal and interest. And that's hurting a lot of seniors in our state, and we want to make sure that they're getting the relief that they so richly deserve because they decided to make Florida their home in their golden years. But it's also about providing relief to young people trying to get into the game of housing. Erin, I'm looking at your daughter right now. When you're trying to get into the game of buying housing, and you got to go to the escrow table for the first time, having to have all that property tax money as a part of your down payment is tough for a first-time home buyer. I went through it when I bought my house for the first time. It's tough for young people, so we want to make sure that if we can't get full homestead repeal done, we want to target that relief to young people getting into home ownership, to seniors on fixed income who have called Florida their home for a very long time. And we're also going to have to do some stuff around portability, because here's the truth. We have a lot of people in our state who have been living in their homes for a long time. And if they decided to downsize, their property tax bills will go up dramatically. So we have to fix portability in our state. Those are the ways that Florida's government can actually be focused on affordability and get real reforms done in Florida to make it more affordable to live in our state. But bigger than that, how are we going to make sure that the young people of the future of our state, how are they going to achieve the Florida dream? You see, I moved here at 17 years old. That's when I came to this state. I got dropped off a Greyhound bus in Tallahassee, Florida. I had a trunk full of clothes. And this is back when kids traveled with trunks. We had trunks. And so 30 years ago, I came to Florida. And I've been blessed. My wife and I have truly built the Florida dream for ourselves. We want to make sure that young people today and in the future can build that dream. Because the future of Florida's success is the future of the successes of young people in our state. We want to make sure that in the K-12 system, our kids are mastering math, reading, and writing by the time they graduate high school. They need to have the employable skills by the time they graduate high school. We also want to work with industry. We announced our Launchpad initiative. We're going to work with industries to create the internships, the on-the-job training, the credentialing, and the apprenticeships that young people in our schools may need. If they're not going to go to Florida State or the University of Florida, let's make sure they have a launch pad into their careers so that way when they walk across that stage at high school graduation, they are walking into a real job, paying them real money so they can put a roof over their head and food on the table. And this is how we keep Florida moving the way it's been going. It's about families, young families being able to build that dream for themselves. Let's be very direct. What we all want is for young men to have highly employable skills. And so that way a young lady looks at them and says, you know what? He's kind of cute. I'm gonna put my bet on him. And we'll build a family and build a life together and raise kids together. And that's how you continue the Florida dream. Our young kids have to be able to know that they're going to be successful. In Florida, we are going to make sure that our kids are going to be successful going forward into the future. But the last of it is what we're going to talk about today. Accountability. This is very important. We are going to be the most transparent government in all of America. Today, I'm announcing my commitment to that. Right now, information is often buried in paperwork, scattered across websites, or only available if you file a public records request. The reform changes that. We're making it simple for every taxpayer to see exactly how their money is being spent, down to the contract, to the salary, or to the fee. We all know about the Doge audits being conducted by the governor and the CFO. My commitment to you is that those Doge audits will continue. They are going to be a fact of life in Florida, but they're going to be for all governments in Florida, local government and state government. Every state agency will have to go through the same rigor, the same process. And what we want to do is have one website where you, the people of Florida, can go, search for the agency, search for the local government, and drill down and really understand how your government is spending money. You have a right to see it. Most of what the average Floridian pays is actually not the state sales tax. It's some local fee or property taxes or something else. You should be able to see every detail because it's your money. It's not our money. You want to talk about affordability in our state? One of the ways you do that is making sure that government is held accountable for how we are spending your money and how much of it we spend. It should be as easy to see what your government is spending as it is for you to search for products on Amazon. And that's the level of transparency we are committed to. Let me give you a couple examples of why this is necessary. In Jacksonville, the mayor up there spent $75,000 on a hologram to be in the airport to greet the visitors as they come and land in Jacksonville International. And so I've flown into the Jacksonville airport. Let me tell you where the hologram is. It's by the front door. It's like this high, by the front door. Mayor Deegan's not that tall. She's not tall. So it's this high. It's at one of the front doors. You're walking directly from the gates to the parking lot or to the roadside pickup. If you go to baggage claim or if you go to the ticketing desk, you don't see the hologram because it's only this tall and it's by one door. They spent $75,000 on that in Jacksonville. Now some people say, Byron, it's only $75,000. But this is what happens in government when people just think it's our money, not your money. And that's why transparency is key if you're going to bring stability to these spending levels. Broward County spent $890,000 on a DEI workshop program for gender ideology. $890,000. And here's the truth. Nobody knew they spent the money until the Doge audit came. Nobody knew it had been spent. We already know in our state, we do not support DEI. We do not support gender ideologies. We don't support that stuff. And let's just be clear. Spending almost $1 million on that is insane, especially when we know we have seniors on fixed income who are struggling how to figure out how they're going to pay their property taxes. This is why transparency is critical to the future of our state. And quite frankly, it's critical to the future of all governments. We have to be transparent. Orange County, right here at home, has been spending $9 million per year on a security contract where the people on the contract have not always been showing up to do their job. And they have failed multiple audits just for the basic requirements to qualify to do that job. And they've been spending $9 million a year. Now, I can't wait to see the facility they've been securing. But if you're going to spend $9 million and you're going to fail at showing up, the people of Orange County have a right to know that. And they should know it when those contracts are being signed and when they're being negotiated. And that's why we believe that the way to do this is to have an all-of-government approach, one website where you can go and search, filter through the information, you can compare the budgets year over year and see the growth in these budgets. And the last but not least, and here's the one we want to make sure that you get. You know how you get those text messages about an Amber Alert? We all get them, unfortunately, and we're glad we get them because when that notice goes out, everybody does look around and see and say to themselves, am I in that area? Let me be looking for that car so we can protect that child and save that child. Or when there's a storm coming, you get an alert on your phone, hey, a storm's coming, be prepared. Well, when these audits are complete, you should get an alert. Hey, we just finished the Doge audit of Orange then you're an empowered citizen. If you choose not to look at it, that's your choice too. But that information should be readily available to every citizen of Florida. It's not government's money. It's your money. And we have a responsibility to be transparent and efficient with your resources. The people of Florida want an affordable Florida. One of the ways we get there is with real transparency and accountability. Real transparency and accountability. To make sure that we are spending your dollars as efficiently as possible. So I just want to thank everybody for being here today. Let me be very clear on this. My mission in running for governor is very simple. Like I told you, I've lived here 30 years. When I'm done with politics, 30 years into the future, trust me, I will be done at 77. I'm not going to be around. But when I'm done, I want to marvel that Florida has remained the best state in America. One of the ways we get there is making sure that we lay the foundation to be the most transparent government in all of America. Thank you guys for being here. I'll take
Congressman, unemployment is inching up in Florida. What are we not doing well enough? What's your prescription to keep it from continuing to rise?
Well, I think one of the things we are going to have to really get into is making sure that we're creating jobs in our state. And the governor has a very good jobs record. He's done a great job. We are seeing it inch up. One of the reasons you start to see that inch up also is people are going out looking for work. That's actually a positive thing. People go out looking for work. The way the unemployment statistic is calculated, the more people are in the flow of looking for work, it takes up a little bit, and that's okay. What we want to make sure we do is that we're having companies come to Florida. We're actually making sure that there are jobs being created in Florida. And if you look at what's happening, especially around Cape Canaveral, with all of the economic activity there is no reason why these space companies aren't manufacturing their hulls in Florida. They should be. We want to see that happen. And you can do this in parts of our state that are looking for economic development. We do have counties that are looking for it. And these are high-paying jobs for people. The second big thing of how we address it, adult education. We have to do a better job about how we are retraining adults who've been in the workforce to get the new skills to transition into another segment of the workforce. Like Career Source, they do a great job, but the time around somebody trying to transition from one job to the next, all the work they have to do, they have families, they have other things, other pressures of life. So we want to find ways to modernize adult education so that it's tangible and helps people make those transition points to get the skills they need to go into the jobs that are available.
You're on the home turf of Jerry Demings. You may be facing him in November. What's your opinion on him, and why would you be a better governor?
Well, I don't have too many opinions. I try to deal with facts. If you look at what Jerry's done here in Orange County, they've been a very wasteful government. Why would we want that in Tallahassee? Number two, if you look at the political positions and the policy positions of the state of Florida, really the last 30 years, especially the last 8, that's actually made our state the envy of the other 49 states. And from what I know about Jerry, he doesn't agree with those policy positions. So that would actually make us more like Illinois and New York and California, which people in our state do not want. That's why people keep coming to Florida, because they're leaving those states. So why would we have somebody lead our state who agrees with a Kathy Hochul in New York, or agrees with a J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, or agrees with a Gavin Newsom of California, or an Abigail Spanberger of Virginia? The people of Florida don't want that. That's why they keep coming here. I was with a World War II vet at the Villages a little bit ago, and he said to me, Byron, when people buy a house here, they're not just buying a piece of property, they're buying a way of life. And that's true. When you talk to people who have chosen Florida, they say to me, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get out of there. So the one thing I know is that Jerry Demings makes us look like these states that a lot of people who have chosen Florida have left. And I truly believe they're not going to choose that in November. I think the other thing that sets us apart, I spent 17 years of my career in the private sector. And to be honest, I'm the only person running for governor that's actually worked in the private sector. If you want to talk about affordability, you want to talk about growing, expanding our economy, jobs, then the next governor of our state actually has to have a business background. Somebody who understands economics, somebody who's not having to wait on a staffer to tell them how to read a balance sheet or how to evaluate a company. My first job, I was a credit analyst right out of college. I ended up managing the whole department, wrote our loan loss report for our bank regulators. So a lot of times when I meet business owners in our state, and I ask them, like, tell me about your business. And while they're telling me about their business, and it's because I was an analyst, I'm recreating their balance sheet as they're talking to me just mentally, like getting a picture of how their business operates. The next governor of our state is going to need to have that skill set, because you have to figure out how you're going to, if that company's coming into our state, how do they come into the fabric of Florida, and how do we accommodate them? How do we manage growth in our state? How do we make sure we deal with affordability? How do we work with road contractors? How do we protect the rural fringe? How do we maintain our water assets? How do we create a power plan to make sure that we have the baseload power that the state of Florida is going to need into the future? And our next governor is going to have a business mind while also understanding the politics of Tallahassee and the politics of Washington to do what's in the best interest of all of the people of Florida. I have that skill set. Jerry does.
Congressman, thank you so much for your time. Yvette Buswan with Spectrum News, Orlando and Tampa.
How's the plantar fascia?
It is, the foot is hurting, but we're working on it. I interviewed you in the Villages last Friday.
Yes.
And I want to pick up a conversation about Venezuela. What is your take? What is your stance on Venezuela? Because we're hearing somewhat conflicting reports. So we have, Senator Rick Scott saying that the person in charge of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, is quote unquote the head of a cartel, is what he said a few days ago. But we have the Trump administration saying she's doing great, we're working with them. What's your stance on Venezuela?
Well, my stance, number one, is that now Venezuela is actually having dialogue and real conversations and working with the United States. Far better situation than with Maduro, definitely far better situation when Hugo Chavez ran that country. And they ran that country into the ground. That's why there's so many Venezuelans who came to Florida to escape the dictatorship that was occurring down there. I think it remains to be seen. Look, when it comes to Venezuela, we got to give the president's team a lot of room to operate. Because, yes, they made a major change with removing Maduro. It's going to need some time to settle out. And I think you got to give that team an opportunity down in Venezuela to make sure that the country is operating in good terms with the United States, and make sure that Venezuela is operating on great terms, respecting liberty, respecting property rights, and free rights of the people of Venezuela.
Is Cuba next?
I hope so. I really do. And let's explain why. Diaz-Canel wants the same deal that the Castro brothers got. He wants to be able to run it with an iron fist and die. Absolutely not. No. What the Cuban regime has done, they created a communist dictatorship. They stole property rights. They stole property from the people of Cuba. And it doesn't matter what government we're talking about. We all understand that when you examine world history, any government that takes away liberty and property from people is a government that should not continue to exist. So I hope that the Cuban regime falls. I hope that we have a free Cuba, and Florida will be a great partner with a free Cuba.
What's your opinion on the state's new congressional map? Right here in Central Florida, Darren Soto's district, majority Hispanic, got broken up. Critics are saying it's watering down the Hispanic vote. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, the first comment is the Supreme Court is very clear that racial gerrymandering is illegal in the United States of America. It's illegal. And let's also be clear. The Democrats don't care about racial representation. They don't care about Puerto Rican representation. They don't care about black representation. They care about Democrat representation. And let me give you an example. In the state of Utah, one of our colleagues, Burgess Owens, his congressional district, it was an outside front group, Democrat group, that went into Utah and sued about one of their congressional districts. And they forced the judge to write a map in Utah that became a heavy-leaning Democrat district. Well, who lost that district? It was Burgess Owens. For those who do not know, Burgess Owens, Super Bowl champion, Republican member of Congress, black man. So let's be very clear. The Democrats do not care about racial representation. They have used the Voting Rights Act for Democrat power. That's what they've used it for. And I find it quite ironic that the reason that the 1965 Voting Rights Act even had to be signed into law, and by the way, fought for by Republicans because it was being filibustered in the Senate by Democrats. That's the history. People need to know their history. I find it very ironic that the reason why the 65 Act had to be created in the first place is because at that time in American history, Democrats were racially discriminating against black voters for the purposes of Democrat power. So let's be very clear on the arc of history. Their party has been very consistent. They will use race for power base. That's what they've always done. That's how they've always been. And so now that the court is doing the right thing, it's saying, look, you cannot racially gerrymander because there is no evidence of racial discrimination of Puerto Ricans, of Cubans, of Venezuelans, of black people in the United States. It does not exist today. And I want to be clear from my words, it doesn't exist today. If you want to go back to 1940, of course it exists. We all know that. And that's why the 65 Act was written. But if you look today, from the year 2000 on, namely the jurisdiction in the United States of America that racially discriminated against black voters or Puerto Rican voters, it does not exist. And that is why you don't need to racially gerrymander congressional districts. And so whether it's Congressman Soto or anybody else, I think they don't have a leg to stand on except that they're upset that now they can't racially gerrymander in order to maintain Democrat political power. And I think if you have to racially gerrymander to maintain Democrat political power, that's wrong, it's illegal, and it's antithetical to the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution.
We know that you have direct access to President Donald Trump, so can you tell me a little bit more about published report that I saw a little bit ago? You are recommending Governor Ron DeSantis as U.S. Attorney General?
Well, the question to me was, did I think he would do a good job? And I said, yeah, I think he would do a good job. The president and I have not talked about what he's going to do with the slot at Attorney General. Right now, the acting AG is Todd Blanche. Mr. Blanche obviously has a previous relationship with the president. I think everybody knows that. And by all accounts, he's just stepping in and doing a good job. And so we'll see what the president does. But on an open face, if you ask me, do I think that Governor DeSantis would do a good job as AG? Yeah, he will do a good job as AG. But I don't know what the president's going to plan to do with that.
Thank you. We'll take questions from the audience now. So, all right, let's start with the first one. Peter, ask a question.
Hi, Congressman Donalds. My name is J.J. Holmes, and as you can see, I'm disabled. I'm on a Medicaid home community-based waiver, and it's the reason why I can live at home instead of being forced into an institution. But I had to wait nearly 18 years to receive services, and there's tens of thousands of other people with disabilities still stuck on that wait list. My question is, our dream is to live at home. So, if you're elected governor, would you defend our Florida dream and commit to fully fund the waiver? Thank you so much for listening.
Great question. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I just want to clarify one thing. How long did it take to come off the waiver? Is that Mr. Park? 18 years? Okay, 18 years. One of the things that we want to make sure that we do going forward is we have to modernize all these internal operations. I mentioned it at the top. This is one of those instances. We do have wait lists in our state where primarily the issue is bureaucratic checks that take way too long. And what it also does, because you're not having the ability to efficiently monitor all Medicaid spending in the state, it all happens as our staff can get to review these programs, then what happens is it makes it harder to make budgetary decisions. So what we want to do is modernize the internal operations at ACO. We want to be efficient with everybody's time and money, and so make that allocation available so we can actually fund more slots to address, obviously, his concern, the concerns of many of us who are on that wait list. In terms of fully funding the waiver, because I don't have that dollar amount in front of me, I'm not going to say I'm going to fully fund it. Because I want to look at the information and make sure that the state can accomplish that within its budget. But part of that is having efficient operations where we have real understanding and can make decisions on all of Medicaid's programs at real time. So we can know with certainty that not only can we fund it today, but we can fund it into the future. And that's where we have to go. I think some people would say, but are you going to fund it or not? Let's be very clear. Once we start funding it, we're not going to stop. And we want to make sure that we can fund it consistently every single year. The way you do that is you have to have full operational control of not just all the operations in Medicaid in particular, but also make sure you're squeezing out the waste and the abuse that does occur in Medicaid. Everybody's seen this stuff in Minnesota. I'm just here to tell you, it's everywhere. And what ends up happening, it puts him in a lurch because we have people who are defrauding the system. Because the system is mostly set up to kick money out the door with very little appetite for checking to make sure the dollars arrive where they're supposed to. And that's how you end up having these fraudulent groups. And I'm glad that the vice president is going after them and doing a great job of doing that. But my conversations with the White House team, Dr. Ross and the vice president, is that in Florida, we're going to make sure we're squeezing out all that waste and fraud so we know we have the dollars available to then fund programs like this, which do need to be funded. Yes, sir.
Hi. I got a lot. We've come to understand that a lot of the kids graduating out of high school are not on mathematical or reading comprehension levels, and we see that constantly kick that can down the alley where these kids are graduating and they're not proficient. They get into colleges, they struggle, they drop out. They go into these jobs that don't really lead into a career. What would you do different as our governor for the state of Florida to encourage that the education system does have more of these kids graduating and are well equipped to go into the job market or go on to university or other endeavors?
This is a great question. It does create a real issue, not just for the future of Florida's workforce, but for the individual child who transitions into adulthood and is trying to find ways to make ends meet. The first part is children have to master math, reading, and writing by the time they graduate high school. And what this is adopting more what looks like progress monitoring than just a couple of benchmark tests along the way. What we have seen is that a lot of our kids are missing key concepts in various parts of math or even various parts of reading comprehension. And when you start missing those benchmarks, the older you get in school, the more people just start checking out. Like you said, they start saying, this isn't for me, I'm gonna just go do something else. Second thing we wanna do is around 7th or 8th grade, we wanna start working with parents, helping them to identify the strengths of their child, and then also trying to figure out what careers line up with those strengths. If you work in a field where you're using your God-given strengths, that's not even work to you. You're passionate, you're going. If you're working in a field where you're weak on this thing, but you're just working there because that's a paycheck to make ends meet, you're not motivated. It's very hard to get motivated when you're working in an area that's not your personal strengths. And we see that as adults. If successful adults, what they end up doing, we work in areas that we're really strong in, and then we hire people who mitigate our weaknesses. Like, you do not want me organizing an event like this. That's why we have Yen. That's not what I do. That's not what I do. It's not me. And so I think in part you have to make sure that when we start getting into late middle school, you're helping young kids to identify what their strengths are in life. And then the last piece, and that's what we mentioned, the Launchpad initiative. If a child has a natural strength for welding or carpentry or plumbing or whatever the case might be, why are we saying, okay, graduate, get English 4, and then they have to leave high school and then figure out where they're going to get the on-the-job training or the skill sets that they need. We should be reformatting our high schools to accommodate for that. To say, hey, listen, it's junior year. If you do this apprenticeship, that actually counts towards your high school graduation because that's helping you be economically viable in the real world when you graduate high school. These are the changes that I think are necessary. Look, I think we've done a great job in K-12 education in our state, but we are now having to raise the bar. The job market, the economy is changing. And we have to make sure that our kids are prepared for those changes that are going to come. I do think AI tutoring models are a part of this. I think there are limited uses for AI. Not to teach kids in the classroom. I think you have to have a teacher in front of that classroom. But as a support model for kids to help make sure they're staying on the trajectory of mastering core subject matter or proficiency. Because if you have a tutor to help you stay on track, or a model to help you stay on track, and that actually helps you build math skills, build reading comprehension skills, build writing skills, and that's actually the stuff. And when you break it all down, that's what makes you economically viable in the economy. Having those skills that are strong, that you've mastered, and they relate just about any job.
If a child is not proficient and they're about to graduate, do you support holding this student back a year to make sure that they are well equipped? I know there's a lot of baggage that goes along with being held back and that can be detrimental, of course, but the focus should be on understanding and comprehending reading and writing skills so they're successful. And again, we see this constantly. Every election cycle, we kick it down the curve, and we still see reading comprehension levels at 56% for our graduating seniors in Orange County.
That's 100%.
It continues.
We got to figure out retention. The retention piece creates many other issues than just holding back that one child. It's also about how you're going to accommodate, honestly, the budget. Because you now have another wave of kids coming in on the front end of the kindergarten. We have about 4 million kids in Florida, about 4 million-ish. They're all moving through the educational system in some way, shape, or form. It may not just be pure retention because you haven't achieved a certain level. It's supposed to just base class level skills, which they do allow for graduation. But the goal, I think the better way to look at it, right now about 26 to 27% of our kids graduate with proficiency in math and reading in the state of Florida overall, about 26-27%. If that moves to 50%, now what you've actually done is you've flattened the bell curve, because now 50% of your kids are now proficient, which means your tail end of the kids who really need interventions is a lot smaller. I think you can actually get them there by the time they graduate high school. But you have to have at least half of your kids in your cohort. They have to be on trajectory to mastery. It actually would give our teachers the flexibility to then really help those kids who have fallen off the mark for a myriad of reasons. It's not just one reason. It could be family dynamics. It could be, they're goofing off in class. It could be they're just not paying attention. It could be they're showing up hungry. It could be a myriad of things that are going on. We want to make sure that most of our kids are getting there to where they need to be so that you can really focus in on the ones who have fallen behind for whatever the reasons are. Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here today. Representative Donalds, you call yourself transparent, yet your actions tell a different story. Why are we sending $14.3 billion to Israel while Florida schools are shuttering and consolidating due to lack of funding? You preach America first, but you took $450,000 from iGas USA, a company owned by the Chinese states that cheats our trade laws. Worst of all, you failed to disclose $1.6 million in personal stock trades while sitting on the House Financial Services Committee that oversees those very companies. You blame third-party managers, but as an investor myself, I know accountability starts at the top. Are you defending the Florida dream, or are you just a CCP-funded politician trading on inside info while our neighborhood kids pay the price?
No, that's all right. That's all right. I'm glad for the question. No, don't hold the microphone because I want to make sure I go through each point. I don't want to miss anything. First of all, when it comes to the trades that my manager makes on my behalf, because I do not call him to make trades. I never have. I actually worked at the firm before I left Congress, before I got to Congress, excuse me. I sold my book of business back to my firm because in Congress you're not allowed to be a fiduciary, meaning you cannot advocate for trades on behalf of clients back in the firm. I sold my book of business. So let's be clear, number one. Number two, when we found the error, by the way, we found the error. We reported it to the ethics committee, my office did. It wasn't anybody else that reported it. We self-reported to the ethics committee. We cleaned up all the paperwork, we filed it, and then we moved forward. That's why now you can go back and see all those transactions. Number three, like I said, I do not initiate trades. I do not believe that members should trade stocks, 100%. But I also believe that if a member of Congress has stocks from their career, they shouldn't be forced to sell them to go into some lame mutual fund with high fees and low returns. My broker does the trading on my behalf. He has third-party authorization. I don't even look at my accounts. It pops up on X whenever we post a new report. The reason I don't look at the accounts is because I don't want to make any determinations on what sits in my IRA portfolio. Here's a better question. Because I became a member of Congress, should I then have to divest from all of my stocks that I accumulated through my working career? Am I not allowed to have a retirement account too, or do you give that up when you become a public official? I think this is an important question when you talk about stock trading. Pelosi and what she was doing, very different from my situation. Very, very different. Like I said before, my firm trades on my behalf. They actually report that to the accounting firm that now does my reporting for me on my behalf. They do that between themselves. I review the report. I say, yep, that looks right. Okay, move on. And that's what we do. Number two, Israel. Are you talking about what the pension fund is with respect to Israel, or are you talking about the United States government overall?
I'm not sure. I just think, I know that there's a lot of... Sorry, I don't have the exact...
It's okay, but you can't... I just want to be clear.
Right.
You can't come here and then rattle off the 5 things, and then I ask a follow-up, and then you don't know. Because now what you're doing is, and I'm just going to be blunt with you, you're being a mouthpiece for somebody else. I want to be respectful. And I get it, it's campaign season, everybody's taking their pot shots. I'm an adult, I'm not afraid, okay? But if you're going to do that, do it on your own accord because it's your question.
Was the money sent or not?
Which money are you talking about? Are we talking federally or state? That's what I'm asking you. If you're talking about the sales that the United States government makes to Israel, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I guess I'm not exactly.
This is what I'm saying. Let's speak on a more broader level. Let's talk Israel. Israel is our ally. That is not going to change. Anybody, in my opinion, who is trying to sever the relationship between the Israelis and the United States is acting, quite frankly, in the interest of the Iranian regime. They're acting in the interest of the Chinese regime. They're acting in the interest of the Russian regime. And I understand that. We're talking. So I'm not attacking you. You asked the question.
I understand. Thank you for clarifying and making me actually think about some of the things I'm saying, because obviously I want to be able to, bring up, counter arguments or things that are actually built and based on facts. So
listen, in foreign policy, we have allies. That's the way this has always worked. The times where America decided to go full isolationist is when our enemies were at our gates. And if you examine world history, every time America looked inward and ignored the world, we ended up having to commit blood and treasure. We had to actually commit troops. We had to commit resources. And so I think that the foreign policy of the President of the United States, and by the way, it's the same foreign policy of President Reagan, is that peace through strength does work. We don't want to commit troops into harm's way. I don't want a 20-year forever war like what happened under the Bush administration. I don't want that either. But I also understand that if we don't maintain alliances around the globe, the Chinese would love that. What the Chinese want more than anything is for America to abandon our allies and just look inward. Because then what the Chinese will do is they will buy up every strip of land, every strategically important geographic area and they will surround the United States. And if you believe that the Chinese have our best interests in heart, then I would say you need to go read a lot more about foreign policy. They have a design to dominate the globe, both economically and militarily. And the Chinese government does not care about your individual rights. They do not care about your individual liberty. They do not care about your future economic prospects. So when it comes to Israel, they're our ally. We support them. We're going to continue to support them. What was the third?
I think it was about iGas and contributions to your campaign.
As I understand it, iGas is not a CCP-owned firm. iGas has actually contributed to a lot of Republicans in the state of Florida. Some of them elected right now. Some of them elected statewide. So I just don't agree with that. I heard the attack, and I went and looked myself. Well, where's the facts? Couldn't find it. So again, people can say what they want in a blog post, but I deal in reality. Anyone?
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure, no problem. By the way, I want to thank you for coming and asking that question. I really do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman, for being here. I want to speak on our largest agency in the state of Florida, the Department of Corrections. So, two-part question. How do you feel about prison reform, number one? And for myself, being someone who has exposed corruption and fraud in the department, how do you feel about the decline of the department and anything that I could do to help you make it the best in the country?
So one of the things I think we got to do is first we have facilities that are in either in need of major repair or are falling apart. We might have to figure out how the state works constructively without spending a lot of direct taxpayer dollars on how we modernize some of those facilities, or even if new ones have to be built, what's the process upon which we build those? I think two, I think when we're talking about what we have to do with our kids coming out of high school, we also think about what happens with these prisoners when they come home. Because they are Americans. At some point, they're coming home. Do they have the skill set to go into the workforce and put food on the table so they're not basically down that line of going to reoffend? And so what I want to see in the prison system is that when an inmate's on their way to leaving, let's help them be on their way to get their barbery license, or help them be on their way to get a CDL license, or help them be on their way to get a carpentry license, or whatever the case might be. Because if they have an ability to put food on the table, it makes it far less likely that they're going to reoffend and end up back in the system. So that's my position on the prison system. That's the things I think we want to get into.
All right, one more question. All right. One more question right here.
And then thank you for taking my question, Congressman Donalds.
Yeah.
Congressman, you speak about accountability, but why weren't you at the governor's forum with James Fishback and other gubernatorial candidates in your own town of Vegas last night?
The organizers asked me if I would be there. I told them months ago I would not be there. The Republican Party of Florida is the entity that's organizing the official debates for the governor's
It
race.
wasn't a debate, it was just like more where your constituents would be able to
Right.
ask questions.
Hold on. I'm telling you. I told the organizers I was not going to be there months ago. This is not a new phenomenon. Number two, we were already scheduled to actually be in Winter Park last night, so that's where I was. I had meetings in Winter Park yesterday, and we were already scheduled. So, just to be clear, I was already there because we was already scheduled to be somewhere else. Number three, the Republican Party of Florida, they control the debate schedule for the governor's race. When they set those, I think the first one is Sunshine Summit sometime in June. Late June is from what I understand. When they set that schedule, I will be there.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you all for the questions. This is going to take our time there. We're moving to our meet and greet, so welcome to stay here.
Hey, thanks everybody for being here.